The world is witnessing a defining competition: the United States versus China. For decades, the US stood alone as the global superpower, but China's rapid rise is changing the balance. This rivalry shapes global politics, economies, and security. It's not just about trade or ideology, it's about who sets the rules and leads the world. The US wants to preserve its system, and influence. China wants a bigger voice reflecting its new power. This is a classic story: a rising power challenges an established one. To understand this, we turn to realism, a theory that focuses on power, security, and survival. Realism tells us that nations act in their own interests, seeking security in a world without a global authority. This explains why the US and China view each other with suspicion even when they talk about cooperation. We'll explore how China's economic projects and military growth build its influence and why this alarms the US and its allies. We'll also see how America is responding, strengthening alliances and competing economically. This analysis uses realism to cut through rhetoric and reveal the logic behind each nation's actions. The US-China rivalry is the most significant geopolitical challenge of our time. Understanding it is key to understanding the future. Let's break down the forces driving this competition, and see how both nations are responding to a shifting balance of power. Realism is a core theory in international relations, explaining why nations act as they do. Its foundation: the world is anarchic. There's no global government to enforce rules. Each state must look out for itself, prioritizing survival and security. States, not organizations or companies, are the main actors in global politics. They raise armies, make treaties, and pursue their interests rationally. Power is the currency of international politics. Military and economic strength, technological and demographic power all matter. Realists argue that states seek more power not out of aggression, but necessity. In an uncertain world, power ensures security. The US-China rivalry is a textbook example. As China's power grows, it seeks more influence. The US, as the established power, sees this as a threat to its own position. This isn't about ideology or misunderstanding, it's a structural shift. When a new great power rises, tension with the old power is almost inevitable. Realism helps us see past surface-level disputes to the underlying struggle for power. The actions of both countries are shaped by this logic. Understanding this framework is essential to analyzing their rivalry. It's not personal, it's the nature of international politics. This is the lens we'll use to interpret their moves. China's economic growth over the past 40 years has been extraordinary. It's now the world's second-largest economy and a global trade powerhouse. Economic strength is the foundation of China's rising influence and a source of concern for the US. Realists see economic power as convertible into military and political power. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is a prime example. Building infrastructure abroad, it gains leverage and creates dependencies. Ports and railways can serve both trade and strategic interests. The US once hoped economic engagement would liberalize China, but instead, China uses its wealth to challenge the US-led order. The US accuses China of unfair trade, technology theft, and state subsidies, seeing these as threats to its own security. China, in turn, claims its rise is peaceful, and that it's simply reclaiming its place in the world. Chinese leaders frame the BRI as a win-win, while viewing US criticism as an attempt to contain them. Both sides interpret the same facts through their own interests. This economic competition is about more than money, it's about global influence. The stakes are high for both nations. Economic rivalry is now central to the broader US-China contest. Each move is seen as part of a larger struggle for power. Economic power often leads to military expansion, and China is no exception. The People's Liberation Army is rapidly modernizing, shifting from coastal defense to global reach. China's building aircraft carriers, stealth jets, and long-range missiles, aiming for a blue water navy. Its anti-access/area denial, A2/AD weapons are designed to keep US forces at bay, especially around Taiwan. China insists this buildup is defensive, rooted in history, and the need to protect its interests. The US and its allies see it as a direct threat, fearing China will use its power to coerce neighbors and challenge US dominance in Asia. This is a classic realist dilemma. One side's defense is the other's threat. The perception gap fuels mistrust and arms competition. Both sides believe they're acting rationally to ensure security. But these moves drive the rivalry further. Military modernization is now a central front in the US-China contest. The US is not passive in the face of China's rise, it's actively responding. America's strategy: strengthen its own power and build coalitions to balance China. Revitalizing alliances is key, deepening ties with Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines. New partnerships like the Quad and AUKUS signal a united front against China's ambitions. The US is also restricting technology exports and imposing tariffs to slow China's advance. Competing with China's Belt and Road America offers alternative infrastructure funding to developing nations. From China's perspective, these moves look like containment and Cold War thinking. Beijing sees alliances and tech restrictions as efforts to hold it back. Each side views the other's actions as aggressive, fueling a cycle of escalation. The US aims to maintain leadership. China seeks to break out of perceived encirclement. This dynamic shapes the strategies of both powers. The rivalry is now global, spanning military, economic, and diplomatic arenas. The world is watching how each side adapts. At the core of the US-China rivalry is the security dilemma. When one side builds up defenses, the other sees a threat and responds in kind. This spiral of mistrust leads to arms races, even if neither side wants conflict. China's naval expansion is seen by the US as a challenge. US deployments are seen by China as containment. Each side assumes the worst about the other's intentions. American leaders see China as authoritarian and ambitious. China sees the US as a hegemon bent on keeping it down. Even cooperative gestures are viewed with suspicion. The security dilemma makes de-escalation difficult. Structural mistrust is now baked into the relationship. This cycle is a major obstacle to peace. Power transition theory warns that moments when a rising power challenges a dominant one are the most dangerous in history. The established power fears losing its position. The rising power wants new rules. History is full of examples, like Germany versus Britain before World War I, or Athens versus Sparta. The Thucydides trap describes how fear and ambition can make war seem inevitable. The key question: is the rising power satisfied with the current order? Many argue China is dissatisfied, believing the US-led system doesn't reflect its status. The US faces a choice: accommodate China's rise or try to contain it. Both options carry risks. China must decide whether to work within the system or challenge it directly. This period of shifting power is full of uncertainty and risk. Peace is not guaranteed. Both sides must navigate carefully to avoid disaster. The stakes could not be higher. The US-China rivalry signals the end of uncontested American dominance. What comes next? Two main scenarios: a bipolar world, with the US and China as rival superpowers, or a multipolar world, with several major players. Bipolarity could force countries to choose sides, echoing the Cold War. Multipolarity would mean shifting alliances and more complexity, but also more instability. In both cases, competition will define the future. Nuclear weapons and economic interdependence make outright war costly, but tensions remain high. Realism teaches us to respect the structural pressures at play. The security dilemma and power transition risks are real. The US-China rivalry isn't a problem to solve, but a condition to manage. Leaders must find ways to compete without catastrophe. The world's stability depends on their choices. Understanding these dynamics is the first step. The future global order will be shaped by how the US and China handle this rivalry. The challenge is to manage competition and avoid conflict.